When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can be confusing. Like Swedish techno confusing.
Bark, bark, meow, meow. Dance with me, purple cow. Bark, bark, meow, meow. Ooh, you lovely cow.
Geico makes it easy. With 24/7 access, all you have to do is go to Geico.com and you could save money on car insurance. It just makes sense. Unlike,
Dance with me, purple cow. I like your moves.
Blog Talk Radio.
And we begin. Welcome to our tele-webcast for November. I'm your host, Chris Daly, and it's my esteemed privilege to introduce our interview of the evening, Miss Janice Maxwell. Janice is an inspiring media mogul. She manages a weekly TV radio program, Caribbean TV World, that's outside of Chicago. She publishes a monthly e-zine for the Jamaican American Club, and she produces a monthly radio show. Let me welcome Janice. Janice, take it away.
Thank you, Chris. Tonight we have a very interesting person. His name is George Graham, who was born in Black River, Jamaica. His journalist career spans the globe, which began in Haiti. Then in Canada, he worked at the Toronto Star, the Toronto Telegram. In the U.S., he works at the Tampa Tribune, the Clearwater Sun. In Florida, and in Jamaica, he worked at the Jamaica Daily News. And these are just some of the few media outlets that George has worked at and has impacted the media world. He's also the author of several novels, one of which is called Girlie, and we'll be focusing on that today. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good. We appreciate you spending some time with us, Jamaicans in the diaspora. Have you checked out the new James Bond film as of yet?
No, I've seen some, reviews of it on television, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, as you know, and maybe some of the people, our listening audience, Ian Fleming wrote the James Bond novels in Jamaica. At his home called Firefly, and I read somewhere that he would leave England around the fall, spend the winter in Jamaica, and would go back to England with another James Bond novel. So it was an inspiring place for him to do his writing. George, being a novelist or a writer, do you find yourself that you have to go somewhere to kind of set the tone to write any of your novels?
No, Janice, I don't decide to write a novel and then figure out where, and how to do it. I started writing because I was homesick. I wrote the first draft of Girlie while I was in Canada one winter, back in the 70s. As I sat in my house in Toronto, looking out the window, and you're probably in Chicago looking out your window at the snow. I dreamed of the sun-drenched plains, and the misty mountains of Jamaica, the lyrical voices and the belly laughs. And I just sat down at my typewriter and started reliving those days. I rewrote the manuscript many times over the years, and I would not be surprised if many of our listeners have a manuscript tucked away somewhere just like me, and they work on it from time to time. It's a very comforting thing to do. It's like an old good luck charm that you take out and look at once in a while.
Ah, I see. Well, recently there's been a surge of Jamaican authors, and they write about the diaspora, whether it's in England or Canada or U.S. or even some of the other islands. And we're just about everywhere. You'll always find a Jamaican. What do you think that this pattern is occurring? Why there's suddenly a surge of Jamaican authors, say in the recent decade, as opposed to maybe the 70s or 60s? Could it be education and they're having an opportunity, or maybe because they're living outside of Jamaica and to wait for them to come back or reconnect with the island? What's your take on that?
Some of those reasons, I'm not sure. I think you've got some of those reasons right. I think it has something to do with the maturing of the Jamaican society. What I mean is that in the old days, writing was something reserved for a special class of people. The books we read in school were all written by English authors, and we grew up thinking that writing was something only the English could be good at. I remember how amazed everyone was when a Jamaican book, I think it was called And the Hills Were Joyful Together, got published in England during the 40s or 50s. But as we traveled abroad and as the island achieved independence, Jamaicans realized that we were as articulate and talented as anybody. And of course, there was the Trinidadian author, the poem Pulitzer Prize winner guy, V.S. Naipaul.
Oh, Naipaul, yeah. I'm a fan of his. I had no idea he wrote so many books.
Oh, yeah. You know, I think he might have opened our eyes to the possibilities that exist for Caribbean writers. We didn't know we could win a Pulitzer Prize until he came along.
He does that, but some people are, at least in the Caribbean culture community, think they're a bit skeptical of him. He tends to have like a condescending attitude at times in some of his.
You know, he has that old-fashioned kind of little tinge of racism that everybody used to have. I mean, you know, back then that was the society. It was racist. Like, I mean, there's no other way to look at it. And he is a little racist from time to time. But he's a good writer.
Oh no, I don't take anything away from him. I've read quite a few of his books. Just as a person who reads a lot, I try to learn about other people's culture, and the fact that he is from the Caribbean or West Indian, there is some resonance. And even though he's Trinidadian, there's some resonance in the things that he writes about. So from that perspective, I mean, I would read his material. You know, the setting of the book, Girly, it was on the eve of independence, and some of the issues that were mentioned then, which was in the 60s, are relevant now. For example, the squatters. Aunt Priscilla didn't really want the squatters around because they squat, they're not going to pay. And then you see that that's a major issue in Jamaica now about squatters' rights. Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I think my own feeling is, and people will call me a socialist or something, I believe that the land actually belongs to everybody, and that there should be a kind of economic planning in which the resources of a community are managed, and that the way forward is planned. So I don't think you should have to have squatters. I think there should be a land development program which is planned out and managed by the government and conducted in a reasonable and economically feasible way. But those are problems that occurred from lack of management, I guess. But I think things have improved. You know, I mean, you'll remember that in the end of the book, middle-class black families are emerging in Jamaica, and Girly herself achieves complete social acceptance. I think this is happening in Jamaica today, and in America too. You know, we have our first black president and first family in the White House, for example.
Well, that's true. But even in the book, where it talks about race often equals class. And because of Jamaica, because we're so mixed, it's not necessarily race, it's more shade, which equals class. Right. And that is, do you think that's important for say, someone who's who doesn't have the Caribbean experience or the Jamaican experience, to be more specific, to understand that, to explain that to them? They don't understand racism, but they may not be exposed to shadism.
Well, you know, the shadism is a thing that I guess it comes from slavery, because back in the old days, the children that the lord of the manor had with his black slaves were treated more like white people than like slaves. So way back then, I guess this trend towards kind of valuing the lighter color kind of developed. I just imagine this. I mean, I've read it too, but I think that's probably true. But, I mean, this is 200 or something years ago. And I'm sure that by now, I mean, look at Honorable Roy McNeil, look at Parnell Charles. I mean, these people are very dark and handsome and absolutely revered by all. So I have a feeling that shade thing is disappearing. It was very much a factor back in the 40s and 50s and early 60s, which is when girls...
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt about that. I mean, not just in Jamaican culture, but I went to an HBU, Howard University, and it was say, pre-1960, if you were dark, it was a very big issue between, say, the light skin and the dark skin. But people who aren't exposed to that, they just don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand that this sort of thing exists, or they can't conceptualize that existing, that kind of thing happening. So in a way, it is important to bring that up. But now that there are more, say, darker-skinned people who have access to education, they come out of, I guess, the ascribed role pre-1960. Do you think that it could be a backlash now?
No, I hope not, because the color of your skin is really just one of the things that you're recognized by. I mean, you can have a long nose or a short nose, or you can be tall, or you can be short, or you can have long fingers or short fingers, or you can be left-handed. It's just one of the things that people recognize about you. I believe that socialization and education will bring a certain acceptance about that. People will just look past the color of the skin and look more towards other things.
Right, but even if and that is true that that's happening more and more. But in some instances, some people say, oh, the minute as the wealth grows, then the first thing to do is either get a white or a brownie as opposed to a black woman.
You know, I don't think Barack Obama would have been elected president if he had been coal black, do you? I don't think Barack could have been elected president of America if he had been actually coal black. I think the fact that he was half white helped get him elected.
Oh yeah, no one disputes that. I mean, and you can even make that that analysis with Bob Marley. He was, of course, reggae music. He was half white, and a lot of people say that because he was half white, he was more acceptable. Because even though reggae came before him, he was basically the ambassador, and he was more quote unquote socially accepted. So I think in some essence it's still there, but fortunately we're moving forward, and in the end, okay, because say the character Bernard, he was really in love with Girlie, but then he ended up marrying Jessica, and then I guess he came to his senses and he moved forward. So the important thing, I guess, we can learn from this is that it's an evolving, right? Yeah. Would you say that's what your novel is? It's like a person evolving, or people evolving?
Yeah, Bernard changes and becomes a human being in the end. Yeah, you know, I think things have improved a lot. And I think that overall things change for the better. I think, you remember the poem that Rudyard Kipling wrote that we used to learn in school? I don't know if you learned it because you were over here, but in Jamaica we learned in school a poem that said, "For there is neither east nor west, border nor breed nor birth, when two strong men stand face to face, so they come from the ends of the earth." And I think that goes for women today, too. When two strong women stand face to face. I think we're getting over that now. It's taken a long time. Lord, it's taken a long time.
Well, it's evolving, and the wheels are turning. They may turn slow, but they are turning. And I think I think that's what's appealing about the book is that you see that you could probably believe it. There are even some parts in it would resonate with, say, a Jamaican in the diaspora. Basically, Bernard had to go home to find himself, and I guess that's why us as Jamaicans living in the diaspora, we do have to go home. We may not physically go home, but we could go home through the internet, through books such as yours, and then because it has that, it talks about other areas that we may have lived. Say Bernard lived in Canada, then the Jamaicans in Canada, that they can understand how that feels, to go home.
I try to show that, how when you're an exile or an expatriate and you're living in some place like Canada, how shallow your life can be. But once you return to Jamaica and you get back to the real things that matter, how life becomes real, and how he doesn't just fool around and, carry on. He actually buckles down and becomes a human being.
Right. And then sometimes that's really what you have to do. You have to be stripped away of everything, the material things, to really find yourself.
Right.
If the job didn't go, the wife didn't go, then maybe he would have just still lived in delusions of grandeur.
That's right.
Yeah. So some of this, what would you like your fans to learn, to take away from the girly novel?
I'd like to take the optimism away. That the novel is about redemption. I'm a great believer in redemption. I have to, because I had a misspent youth. But I believe that no matter how bad you are, or how shallow you are, or how naughty you've been, that you can redeem yourself once you recognize the folly of your ways, that you can buckle down and straighten up and fly right.
Well, that's definitely good parting words. For those of you in Radioland who would like to learn more about George Graham's books, such as Girly, Hill and Gully Rider, Jamaica Remember, The Color of Ice, they can all be purchased on Amazon. Or if you go to JamaicanDiaspora.com and click Caribbean Cultural Store, you can see his books there as well. We really appreciate you spending some time with us, George. Thank you.
Well, it's been very, very pleasant to spend some time with you, Janice. Good luck.
We'll see you next time.
Okay, bye.
Napa Auto Parts wants to know, what makes today's new cars so smart? Is it the questionably useful Wi-Fi connectivity? Could it be the giant, confusing touchscreens you should probably stop playing with while driving? Or perhaps voice-activated everything that never seems to listen very well? The answer, of course, is none of the above. Click the banner to see the smartest car available today.